And we are live. Hope everyone's doing well. My name's Mark,
My name's Mark.
and this is the M&M Show, where we discuss fantasy football, NFL trends, and make our predictions. So, Mark, you ready to get into some winners, some losers, or should we start with some of our correct and incorrect predictions from last week?
Yeah, let's start with correct predictions this week. I'm feeling good about one in particular. Last week I said Garrett Wilson was going to get at least 90 yards receiving and a touchdown. Last week he had 101 and a touchdown. So it took him 22 targets to get there, but that felt good. What about you? Who'd you have as a correct prediction this week?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like I did pretty good on my trade targets. If we were able to land those trade targets in some way, shape, or form, in some kind of team somewhere. Um, these included Brock Bowers, Garrett Wilson, even. Uh, yeah, I think those are the ones that are coming to mind at the moment.
Yeah, you also had Rico Dowdle, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. Like everyone you said to target had a fantastic week 5. So
yeah,
all the way around, good calls on that.
I'll say they probably super exceeded my expectations. I didn't think they would all just line up this and during week 5 or week 4 and decide to maybe they had some kind of agreement. Maybe they heard us. I don't know. But that was good to see. Uh, I had a lot of incorrect predictions too. So I think I was thinking more this week would be Brock Bowers' buy time. But that's not quite the case because now his stock has really gone up, being the tight end number 1, leading points for tight ends across the league for fantasy football. Followed by Jordan Mason, 3 touchdown prediction. Did you watch that game by any chance, or did you see any of the highlights?
Yeah, I had a parlay with Jordan Mason anytime TD. So that prediction especially hurt. I didn't expect him to get 3 touchdowns. That was a little bit bold on your part, but not even getting one was painful for me.
Yeah, probably misled you there. Last incorrect prediction for myself was Isaiah Likely. I mean, he was in the losers last week, especially since I really like the guy, but uh, I have him in a couple lineups, and I just didn't have the confidence to play him. And of course, he just gets a nice 3-catch, 2 TD game, 20
Efficient,
yards or so, 12 yards.
very
It's
efficient.
yeah, incredible.
Yeah, I had a couple incorrect predictions myself. I was really high on Xavier Worthy with Rashid Rice being out for probably the rest of the season. I thought he was going to get 2 touchdowns. He barely got one. Really weird offensive play with Travis Kelce getting the snap and him getting a rushing touchdown, but it's not 2 touchdowns, and he wasn't as involved in the passing game as I had hoped. And then I didn't predict this on our podcast, but I did text you that Kareem Hunt should be avoided. And then the guy goes off and is a top 5 RB in fantasy. So yeah, that was another miss on my end. But
Completely. And if I can find the screenshot, we will be including it.
you don't have to. You can leave that in the archive.
Fair enough. Let's talk some winners then.
You want to
Quarterbacks.
kick us off with your quarterbacks?
Sure thing. Yeah, I think I have Lamar Jackson as my first winner. I think he's just looking dangerously like a QB1 type of season. Kind of went through it last week also. He was a winner again. So it's safe to say I might be calling this guy out every week just because he just keeps winning. And he looks awesome on the field. He's doing, yeah, I mean, probably the best runner of the football, like we said. And again, he's like a Peyton Manning type in the regular season where he can just absolutely dominate. So love seeing what Lamar is doing at the moment. And I wish I had him on one of my teams. Uh, who do you have as a winner?
I only have one. I've got Kirk Cousins. I don't think anyone expected him to have a franchise record for passing yards, especially on a night where Matt Ryan was getting inducted in the team's honor, Ring of Honor. 509 yards and 4 touchdowns is bonkers. One thing I did note, though, is that he had 34 points with 509 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. Justin Fields pretty much had that number of points last week with 300 yards passing just because of the rushing and his rushing touchdowns. And I think kind of like with Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Jaden Daniels, like we can't underestimate or undervalue running for quarterbacks. Like the score and output from that is so significant. So Kirk Cousins, huge week for him. I'm high on the Atlanta Falcons, but yeah, shout out to running quarterbacks as well.
Yeah, I mean, completely. That's a great observation that you bring up. I was fortunate to have Kirk Cousins on a super flex league, so it was really nice just seeing that 40 points just about come in to start the weekend. So we'll see. I hope he can keep it up. Let's see what he can do. It seems like Atlanta is looking better by the weeks, and also they're just tremendous at keeping games very close. I think there was a stat where it's, every game they've played, it's been a one possession game, whether it's by 8 points or 1 point, really.
It's great for fans. Like I love watching those games. It's keeps us entertained.
Yeah. Another winner, just fantasy wise, I have Baker Mayfield. I think he's just showing to be a great value QB. So obviously you're not looking to draft Baker Mayfield going into the fantasy season, but if you somehow just skip quarterbacks and waited to capture someone like Baker Mayfield, then your team might be in a pretty good position. And last but not least, Joe Burrow, 5 touchdowns, 392 passing yards, and he's in my dynasty team, so I love Joe Burrow.
Low hanging fruit, man. You're going for Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. Those are freebies. I guess Kirk Cousins was too.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of players that we have been high on or may have been drafted high and we're regretting, I've got a couple of losers here that I was high on going into the season. Josh Allen being one of them. I mean, he terribly inefficient last week. There was a stat Eric Moody wrote for ESPN where in the past 30 years, all quarterbacks with 30 or more pass attempts in a single game, Josh Allen had the most inefficient game in the last 30 years. He had 131 passing yards, and he only completed 30% of his passes. Like that is god awful. So
you can't do that, Danny.
That one definitely stung. And another quarterback on here too, like Sam Darnold. I think last week or 2 weeks ago, we were talking about him as like an MVP candidate, kind of like Baker Mayfield, putting up big numbers on a team that was overachieving. And then he got injured. And then B, just turnover issues with the interception, the fumble, not even cracking 200 passing yards. Both of those quarterbacks really, really stung this week if you had them in your lineups. I had Sam Darnold as a super flex, so that one hurt. No Kirk Cousins in my lineup.
I certainly thought about starting Sam Darnold. The one thing that held me from starting him was that they're playing in London. And hey, maybe if you ask me, I think Garrett Wilson enjoys trips to Europe and, fish and chips, maybe. But Sam Darnold definitely doesn't. So, yeah, unlucky from him. I do think he'll bounce back because the Minnesota Vikings are just a pretty dang good football team. And I agree with you there on Josh Allen. The QB1 stock is definitely in question, completely surpassed by Lamar Jackson at the moment. And Aaron Rodgers, I mean, are the Jets going to run the ball? Like, they're not going to win throwing 55 passes from Rodgers. So, especially when you got guys like Braylon Allen, Breece Hall, and a pretty, above average offensive line. Yeah, they have a lot of thinking to do, and they just fired their coach. So a lot of just sudden things just coming at the Jets at the moment.
This felt a lot different from when Jared Goff threw 55 passes, I think, against the Bucks a couple weeks ago. I mean, like Aaron Rodgers barely cracked 50% completion. He tied his career high with 3 interceptions. It's not what we expect from him or the Jets offense going into the season. So yeah, Garrett Wilson had himself a day, but the rest of the Jets offense did not.
Yeah. As for my last loser in QB, I have Patrick Mahomes. Just because, again, another guy you're paying a high price for, probably the 3rd or 4th quarterback off the board. And, I mean, he's still Patrick Mahomes. He's still amazing to watch, doing magical things on the field. But as far as fantasy football goes, he's not been the favorite option. Would you still start him next week? Would I still start him next week? Probably so. I mean, you have to think at some point this guy's going to crack 20 points at least. So
I mean, I'd start him over Drake May or Bo Nix, but I mean, even Bo Nix is starting to push that conversation. So
Patrick Mahomes or Justin Fields, who are you starting?
Justin Fields.
Justin Fields.
It pains me to say that because it's a Mike Tomlin Pittsburgh Steelers offense, but yeah, Justin Fields.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would have more confidence in the Justin Fields upside than the Patrick Mahomes floor. So, yeah, let's move on to your territory here, running backs. Do you have any winners for us?
My favorite section. Talking about the Chiefs and Kareem Hunt again. Was not high on him, but he had himself a week. I think he finished RB4. He had 27 rushes. 27. Like if a running back cracks 20 touches in a game, we're happy about that. And he just kept getting the ball and kept running the ball. Carson Steele almost had another fumble. I don't see him really getting touches on offense. So Kareem Hunt definitely had himself a week. I also had Tyrone Tracy Jr. from the Giants. I thought he was going to have a good day. I did not think he was going to get 129 yards on 18 touches. I thought he was going to be more involved as a pass catcher. He's a wide receiver turned running back. He only had 1 catch in the entire game. But yeah, still had a really good week, and I think he carved out a bigger role for himself in the Giants backfield along with Singletary.
Yeah, completely. Tracy, he's one of those guys that you traded him to me last week in our Saquon Barkley trade, and I almost regret dropping him, but at the same time, I want to see if he can do it again.
Yeah, he was a dart throw last week. We'll see how consistent it is. I thought he was going to have a good week. I didn't expect this great of a week. But who do you have? You've got a couple on here.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start with DeAndre Swift. He did it again back-to-back weeks, looking more legitimate and proving us wrong. So that's a little embarrassing to admit, but we gotta acknowledge our losses and let the reality sink in, right?
We'll see if he can do it 3 times. I'm still a doubter.
I will doubt it too. 2 more winners. I have Rico Dowdle. Again, this was one of the guys I predicted that you should trade for, and now his stock is going up. So it's going to be a little bit more of a difficult trade. You're not going to get him as low as you maybe could have before. So good on Rico Dowdle. He's finally showing, the preseason expectations were kind of setting on him. And my last winner is Chuba Hubbard. He's going a little bit unnoticed, and I don't think we've called him out yet in our pod. So I kind of just wanted to bring some attention to Chuba Hubbard. He's been playing really well, some pretty good back-to-back weeks, and so we'll see how. I don't think his position, at least starting position, isn't any threat by Jonathan Brooks at the moment. So it's going to be interesting to see how that affects him. But shout out to Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah, he's been consistent since Bryce Young got benched, which isn't entirely shocking. You get a better passing offense, it opens up opportunities for the run game. we've got quite a few losers on here at the running back position, and I think that just speaks to generally a rough week at the position. I mean, I'm always high on RBs, but this week was a little bit on the poorer side. Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, just alluding a little bit to that point. There was no Saquon Barkley this week, and there was no Lions backfield running the football too. So I think that might have affected how running backs performed. We might be thinking differently if they had played, but we're going to see them again come up this week. But yeah, a couple losers. Again, this is more of your domain, but I want to just shout out Aaron Jones, or call out Aaron Jones. He's out injured. The bye week should help recover. So we'll see. Maybe it's a good time to buy on Aaron Jones, just because there's that time, there's that space. The manager might not be knowing. He might be a little hesitant about Jones moving forward. So maybe a good trade target there. And same with Devon A-Chain. He was concussed during the game very early on, so it probably cost several fantasy owners their matchups just altogether, because you're banking on at least 10 points from A-Chain, right? That's what the projections tell you. But Tua's returning, so again, this might be a guy that you may want to tackle, just because the owner won't have that type of secure running back for next week.
Yeah, I mean, good call out on A-Chain too. It's one of those things where we don't expect the Dolphins to throw the ball a lot with Tua out, and so we expect A-Chain to get some touches and for the Dolphins to run, at least while they can, when they're not down 2 scores. So him going out early definitely hurt, but Jalen Wright had himself a pretty good game. I just don't see him maintaining like that number of touches once A-Chain comes back.
It's such a big committee, because after A-Chain, Mostert was taking the load, and Wright did have some really good moments. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how those 3 guys kind of work it out between themselves.
Yeah,
let's hear your losers, Mark.
I got 2 on here where they were partially salvaged by involvement in the passing game. I've got Alvin Kamara and then Travis Etienne. Kamara had the fewest rushes he's had all season. Granted, it's only 5 weeks in, but he only had 11 rushes for 26 yards, which is not the efficiency we expect from a top 5 running back. He did have some involvement in the passing game that helped. I'm really high on Alvin Kamara. I'd love to snag him from any owners who are willing to give up on him. But yeah, rough outing for him. And similarly with Etienne, he just got outperformed by Tank Bigsby. Wasn't efficient. He had 6 rushes for 17 yards, but he had the most catches he's had all season. So he saved some points, but it's not what you want to see as a running back fantasy owner. That's not their bread and butter. And the last running back I have on here as a loser is Breece Hall. We talked about this a little bit last week as well. The Jets' offense is just out of sorts right now. He's getting stuffed behind the line of scrimmage. There was another stat I saw from Liz Loza at ESPN where almost a quarter of all of his rushes he's been tackled for a loss. And like, I, for one, as a Breece Hall owner, hate watching games on Sleeper, on ESPN, and you just see your points decrease the more touches he gets. It's never a fun sight to see. So yeah, all 3 of those running backs just not really efficient, not getting the volume in terms of rushes or just rushing yards that we'd like to see from any of them.
Yeah. Again, well, I haven't said this yet, but my condolences. Tough week for running backs. So hang in there, though. I think there's some promise moving forward in the future. But let's move on to greener pastures.
Your area of expertise.
We have receiving winners. So would love to get us started off with just another Garrett Wilson shout out. Just finally coming through. Also, just to add on to the already great game he had, he would have had the game-winning touchdown had Rodgers not missed him there at the end. And if you look at that throw closely, Rodgers is throwing that ball so nonchalantly, like he thinks he has him. And again, this just adds to the persona that Aaron Rodgers is, right? Maybe if he he needed a little more focus instead of just trying to let that thing rip and thinking that, he's still the Aaron Rodgers of old. But boy, would I have loved that. Let's just cap it at that. Another winner, Brian Thomas Jr. Once again, just making the winners list and looking like a complete monster on the field. However, there is a little bit of a shadow based off his performance because most of his output was only in the first half. So again, the second half was just a slower game versus the Colts. And then next week he has a tough matchup against the Bears. So I want to see if he has another display like this against the Bears, like this guy might be the real deal. So can't wait, and I hope he can do it. Last winner for myself, DJ Moore, just to clear wide receiver 1 there with the Chicago Bears. It seems like my doubts about his and Caleb Williams' connection they've kind of evaporated for the time being. And again, they played the Panthers, so a bit of an easier matchup, but they still play the Jags next week. So DJ Moore should be looking pretty good to play, I would say.
Yeah, with Brian Thomas Jr., you were talking about how he had a big first half and then slowed down in the second half. At least it's not as bad as Marvin Harrison Jr., where it's like he's big in the first quarter and then just disappears for the rest of the game. No fault of his own.
Yeah,
but
it's tough to see too. They had the games on here on Sunday. They had the 49ers and the Cardinals, and it's you saw Marvin Harrison Jr. come up big in the 4th and 10 or 4th and 8 there towards the end of the game. But aside from that, just you couldn't even sniff him on the field. So yeah, concerning.
Yeah, it was unlike running backs, it was a big week for receivers. We had Jamar Chase, low-hanging fruit because he had a monster game, over 200 yards or about 200 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. I think the thing that stood out for me with Jamar Chase is he did that with T. Higgins also getting targets and a touchdown. Yeah. I faced a Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow stack in the league, and that cost me last week. Shout out again to the Falcons receivers. Drake London and Darnell Mooney both had big games. Darnell Mooney, 16 targets and 2 touchdowns, and Drake London had 13 and a touchdown. Again, Kirk Cousins isn't going to throw for 500 plus yards every week. He's not going to be that efficient or distribute the ball that much. But if you had either of them or both of them, you were really happy about last week. And then I've also got Ayuk on here as a winner, just because like the past 4 weeks have been rough if you're an Ayuk owner, and to see him get like 140 yards receiving, he didn't catch a touchdown, but like he outperformed every other receiver for the 49ers this week. I don't know if he'll be consistent with it, but big week for him.
Yeah, no doubt. I will have to say, even though I had London and Pitts as trade targets, I did not target London enough in any of my leagues, to my own detriment. Or maybe, London's one of those guys I was taking maybe around the 3rd round. So one of those high receivers, and I just maybe didn't feel confident enough about being able to make a deal happen, and then also banking on the Falcons and what's going to come out of them. So, and no, Kirk Cousins won't. I don't think he'll throw for 500 yards again.
Like in his career, I think he might have.
I think
he might have one more game in his career.
No way.
Kind of like Kobe dropping 60 in his final game.
Too much.
Yeah. I should apologize. I should never compare Kirk Cousins to Kobe. But
yeah, but it happened. So, let's continue. Let's see
more pass catchers. Yeah. Let's get into tight ends.
Yes. and now the tight ends are coming alive. They're like emerging from the ground like zombies, you know?
The brave. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want to kick us off a little bit?
Sure. I'll go with one of your trade targets from last week. A guy I'm really high on, Kyle Pitts. I'm happy to see him have a good game, right? He didn't catch a touchdown, but I think the thing that struck out to me was just how many times Kirk Cousins targeted him for like that first down. Maybe like 3rd and 8, and Kyle Pitts would just run like a little slant or post and move the chains. And you love to see that. I don't expect, a tight end to go off for 150 yards or anything like that every week. But being able to get 5, 6, 7 catches, maybe like 70, 80 yards. I think Kyle Pitts had 80 or 90 yards last week. That was really good to see. And the only other tight end I've got on here is Brock Bowers. We had some really good tight end performances this week, but yeah, he's the real deal. Devontae Adams is going to be gone, and I don't care who's under center. I don't care if it's Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. Brock Bowers is going to get even Bryce Young. I mean, Bryce Young would probably target him more than any other quarterback. Brock Bowers is going to have himself really good weeks throughout the season. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Pitts looks awesome out there. He looked awesome in the Thursday night game, and finally, all that potential is finally realized, at least for one game, at least. So you get a taste of that. Yeah, let's see if he can keep it up. Yeah, as for my winners, I have Tucker Kraft. He's done this now 2 weeks in a row. And it seems like to me, him and Bowers might end up being the true winners as far as finding that tight end value in the draft. Just because especially Kraft is just one of these guys that nobody was looking at to draft whatsoever. And now
he's a waiver wire pickup. I don't think like a single person drafted Tucker Kraft. It's just he had a really good week last week. Everybody pounced on him, and if he can keep it up, I don't want to say he's going to be a league winner, but he's looking good through 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, capable of giving you those big matchups that will, or those big games that will win you matchups. Again, I'll give a winning crown to George Kittle. He's just proven reliable and doing it again for the season. It seems like he has a guaranteed 40 yards no matter what. So that's maybe coming out of at least 2 catches. So at least you're covering 6 points if it's a full PPR league. But more likely than not, he'll get a few more targets within those 40 yards. So, and that's not even talking touchdowns. So shout out to George Kittle, and then also Travis Kelce, just doing it again, 2nd week in a row, and it seems like he's just coming out as the true winner from the Rashee Rice injury.
Yeah, with George Kittle, you alluded to it, but I think those red zone targets are invaluable. It's something that we don't see with every tight end. Like Kyle Pitts hasn't necessarily had them. And with the 49ers offense, they've got so many weapons that like you don't know who is going to get touches inside the 20, but he's gotten some looks in the red zone and he's converted them to touchdowns, which is a huge boon if you're a George Kittle owner.
Yeah, without a doubt. So now we're coming to our losing wide receiving pass catchers. So I'll get us started here real quick. I have Nico Collins.
Yeah.
It seems like a re-injured hamstring. Apparently his hamstring was hurt coming into the season, or somewhere along before the season, preseason, coming into the season. And it seems like a re-injury of sorts. So it's at least 4 weeks out, immediately in IR. So we'll see, depending on what your team is looking like, this may be a guy you want. But again, those re-injuries could be pretty costly and pretty tough to come back from during the season. And then I have Deebo Samuel. only 3 receptions, but 80 yards, which is, still promising, but the 3 receptions just a bit concerning if you're one of his owners. But I mean, this is Deebo Samuel, so for me, I'm looking to target him. This is like almost a buy low type of some sorts.
Yeah, and he's still getting touches on the running game too. I mean, he's not going to be terribly efficient with them, but he'll get 2-3 rushes per game, maybe convert that into 20 yards, maybe a rushing touchdown. But speaking of receivers who run instead of catch, I've got Xavier Worthy as a loser. The rushing touchdown salvaged his week. I mean, I think he still put up like 10 or just over 10 points, but it hurt as a Xavier Worthy owner to see Juju Smith have the monster game that he did. And Travis Kelce, I mean, we talked about week after week how he was underperforming, all tight ends were underperforming, and then he had a really big game last week. I expected more of Xavier Worthy. I think that's partly why he ended up here, is just the disappointment from my own aspirations. Incredibly talented, but yeah, we'll see what next week looks like. I also have DK Metcalf on here. It's 2 weeks in a row where he's had a fumble, and you might expect fumbles from Carson Steele or other rookie running backs. I don't personally always expect them from receivers, least of all someone like DK, who's big, who's strong. It also just felt like a repeat from week 1 where he just had like a downer of a week. But week 1, the Seahawks are playing the Denver Broncos, who have a very legitimate defense. Last week, they played the Giants, who do not. So I didn't expect DK to have under 6 fantasy points. I expected him to put up a little bit bigger numbers than that.
That was pretty shocking from DK without a doubt. And it entices me because, again, seems like another excellent buy low opportunity. As far as Worthy goes, I'm a believer. It's been a rough ride. It hasn't been the smoothest of rides, right? He hasn't been getting the looks that we've expected coming into the year. Just being the fastest guy in the combine, 40-yard dash combine time. And, it hasn't quite worked out yet, but I think we just got to give this guy the chance to go through the season, right? And I think the results will probably show towards the later half at best.
I mean, he's a rookie, and the Chiefs' offense is still trying to figure itself out, especially with injuries to like Hollywood Brown, to Rashee Rice. I think what hurts is you see other speedy guys like Jameson Williams or Shaheed putting up big numbers and working within their offenses. And I expect something like that from Xavier Worthy, and it just hasn't translated.
Again, just another testament to the Chiefs being who they are. It's like they keep getting hit by these hurdles and speed bumps, Pacheco injuries, Rashee Rice, and this team's still 5-0.
Next man up.
And they're not using this guy like Worthy. So I think it's just one of these Andy Reid tricks where they're just trying to stash him until they really need to use him, and the league just isn't ready for what he might be capable of. It might be one of these things. We'll see if it works out. 2 more losing pass catchers. I have Dalton Kincaid. Really, it's just more of a Josh Allen thing where, he underperformed in his throwing numbers, so that affects every pass catcher in Buffalo, except for maybe Keon Coleman this past week.
And Keon Coleman finally getting a touchdown.
Really sweet touchdown.
Yeah.
Really sweet, just tipping toe, not going out of bounds. And some pretty awesome cleats to go with that too.
They put Wonder Glue on them. Yeah, I've got one tight end that's a loser here. I've got Mark Andrews. If you're a Mark Andrews owner, you're probably happy because week to week he's put up 2.5, 7, 0, and 0 points prior to last week. But the fact that he got outscored by 2 other tight ends on his team, not just Isaiah Likely, but another third string tight end. That hurts if you were as high on Mark Andrews as I was going into the season.
It's a Charlie Collar.
Him. Yeah. Yeah, we were really familiar with Charlie going into this week. Speaking of people that kind of came out of nowhere, do you wanna kick us off with those?
Yeah, well, aside from Charlie Collar just being a complete outlier, that's already my tight end pick, so we won't cross that road again. Yeah, I had Trevor Lawrence as my out of nowhere QB, 371 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. And again, I believe this was against the Panthers, so there's that side of the coin too. So nothing to get too excited about, but good to see Trevor slinging a little bit and, showing that number one pick, that the number one pick promise that we all, slapped on him.
He has times where he looks so good throwing the ball, not just because he's got like that long hair and everything. Like he's just a good quarterback. And then sometimes week over week, he just looks awful. So glad to see him kind of have a breakout performance, especially after the start of the season.
Yeah, seems like you got a Bronco on the list and a former Bronco also.
Yeah, you're probably thrilled about that. I'll start with the Bronco. I've got Bo Nix on here. Again, not a terribly efficient quarterback. He's a rookie. He's still figuring out the league. He's still figuring out how to run this offense. But he put up good numbers, and a lot of it just came from rushing. He had like 7 points from rushing, which accounted for a third of all of his points. I think we really, again, maybe it's just me, but forget how much rushing adds to the quarterback value. And even with that, running back committee in Denver, he's still getting designed runs. He's still moving the ball on the ground. So good for him. Didn't expect it.
If they can't move the ball passing,
run it.
Run Bo Nix.
The Chargers are going to trade for him. The other quarterback I've got on here, you mentioned ex-Bronco, Joe Flacco. I thought, with the Colts, he'd play more of like a game manager role, maybe throw for like 2 touchdowns. That'd be pushing it. He put up like Joe Burrow numbers. He had over 350 yards passing, 3 passing touchdowns, got a big first down running, which I didn't know Joe Flacco could run at all. So yeah, definitely out of nowhere for me, but big weeks for both of those guys.
Yeah, and I'm still Joe Flacco is still going off the vibes from last year when he was with Cleveland and just making that awesome late run into the playoffs. Yeah, the guy, he has nothing to lose. He's done it all in his career, so I really think he's just having a lot of fun. So yeah, give me Joe Flacco over Anthony Richardson, please.
That's a bad take. That's a bad take. I'll say that right now.
It's amazing, man. The Colts can actually win with Joe Flacco.
If you're Cleveland, would you rather have Joe Flacco starting or Deshaun Watson?
Joe Flacco.
Agreed. But that's got to hurt when you're paying Deshaun Watson as much as they're paying him.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back into friendly territory. Do you want to hit us with the running backs that surprised you this week?
Yeah, sure. So another Colt, Trey Sermon, being the starting running back in place for Jonathan Taylor. So he just seemed like he was an excellent plug-and-play option for Taylor. Again, they're playing Jacksonville, but still, it's good to see that at least he can do it against one NFL team. And if you're a Taylor owner, you need to have this guy. So find a way to get him on your lineup. I also have Roschon Johnson, former Texas running back. So there was a lot of talk about him last year, just being this sort of type of TD type of back or goal line type of back. And now it ramped up a little bit the last 2 weeks. Last week, 1 touchdown. This week, 2 touchdowns. So could be the next Mostert Monty type. Maybe not as talented, but there's something there. My last QB, of course, I love my Broncos. So Javonte Williams, I mean, this is probably going to be the best game of the year that he'll have because he was tremendous rushing and receiving. So over 100 yards in both category, or not total, rushed and receiving combined. But we have a tough game against the Chargers next week. However, it's a Champagne team, so we're going to run the ball, and that's how we're going to win.
That's another bold prediction. I'll take the Chargers. I'm also higher on Jaleel McLaughlin than I am on Javonte Williams. I mean, Javonte Williams is still leading that committee, but I think McLaughlin's going to come out of that.
Potentially, yes, but it's so hard to say. It's just, even for myself, I don't know who to trust more, but I feel pretty good about Javonte, at least for the next few weeks, being the lead guy.
Yeah, barring injury.
Yep.
Yeah, in our winners and losers for running backs, I talked about efficiency and volume. And the two guys I have on here that were kind of out of nowhere for me, both had efficiency and volume. I've got Tank Bigsby. Talked about that with Travis Etienne a little bit, but he was RB1 this past week. He had over 100 yards rushing on 13 touches for 2 touchdowns, and he caught his only pass. Like, I don't know how you get more efficient than that. I don't even put up numbers like that in Madden when I play with a running back. So he's like, I don't think he's going to run away with this backfield. Travis Etienne is still going to get his touches. But yeah, Tank Bigsby is stepping up week over week. Just didn't expect it. And then I also have Rico Dowdle on here. I mean, we talked about this. Expectations were pretty high for him coming into the season and for the Cowboys offense. But I think he finished RB3 this week, and he had 20 rushes, which I don't expect from a Dallas offense that likes to pass, and B, I didn't expect when you also have guys like Zeke still getting touches. But yeah, big week for him.
Yeah, again with Dowdle, I would say it's not that the expectations were high, but we set the expectation that he should probably be the lead back, at least the consensus that I heard around the fantasy community. And yeah, Tank Bigsby. So, and one more point to Tank Bigsby and Roschon Johnson. Both of these guys, I think they're second-year backs. So they didn't spring up in their rookie year. Maybe they had certain flashes here and there, but now they're starting to take on maybe bigger roles with their team. So interesting to see those two things develop.
Fresh legs.
Hey, you know how it goes, man. Yeah, as for my out of nowhere receivers, I have Darius Slayton. So you can forget about Malik Neighbors, bench him. It's time to start Slayton. Please don't do that. And then I have Darnell Mooney, just looking, he reminds me a lot of just the Shaheed type of builds where these guys are just wicked fast and wicked quick. Some of the lighter type of players in the NFL, but man, it's so much fun to see when it all comes together. So 2 touchdowns and 100+ yards, 16 targets. So outstanding game for me.
He probably could have had a third touchdown if he didn't try to run before he caught the ball.
That's absolutely true.
It's one of those things. He could have caught a few more balls Kirk Cousins threw his way, but hey.
I wanted to remember that for this moment, but I'm glad you brought it up.
You're welcome. Yeah, I've got 2 out of nowhere receivers on here you already covered in your winner section, but I just didn't expect them. DJ Moore, I wasn't sure about his chemistry with Caleb Williams, getting 2 touchdowns and 105 yards on 5 catches kind of lays that to rest. Part of it is Keenan Allen's been injured, and Rome Odunze hasn't stepped up quite how I think a lot of people expected him to step up in the Chicago offense. But yeah, DJ Moore is receiver 1, and I don't think he's going to be an out-of-nowhere receiver for me anymore. And then I also had Garrett Wilson. I know I made that prediction last week about him getting 90 yards and a touchdown. I thought that was going to be an incorrect prediction. I'll be honest. I'll be up front. part of it was game script. You know, we don't expect Aaron Rodgers to throw 54 passes every week, but yeah, Garrett Wilson having 20, 22 targets, and yeah, he hit himself a game. So
Yeah.
that was a little bit out of nowhere for me.
And I guess you have one more pick since I already covered Charlie Collar from the Ravens, the third string tight end from the Ravens. Never forget.
Who?
Never forget. My new favorite player aside over Isaiah Likely.
We're gonna start hearing narratives about can the Ravens support 3 top 10 tight ends? Yeah.
Oh man.
I've got a tight end on here that was out of nowhere from me, and that was Tucker Kraft. I'm gonna eat crow for that because it's 2 weeks where he's put up bonker numbers, but I just didn't expect it. I think with the tight end position, it's been so volatile this year. I don't expect really any tight end to have consistent week over week production like that. And he proved me wrong.
Yeah, something about that Packers offense. It's just it's giving me a lot of 49er type of vibes where they have all these different types of weapons, especially on the receiving end. And yeah, I just think I'm really trying to target these guys now. I'm heating up, you could say, to the Packers big time.
Yeah, I see one of them as a potential trade target for you if we want to get into that.
Yeah, without a doubt. Jaden Reed, this guy is, he's had some explosive games already, 20 pointers, and he's going to have some down weeks too. So that just comes with the risk of having Jaden Reed, and we're coming off a bit more of a down week for him, despite still having some pretty good stats. So I think it's time to capitalize and try to get Jaden Reed in one of my lineups somewhere. That's my goal for next week, to have Jaden Reed at least in one of my teams. Yeah. Do you have any Packers or? Oh, is that?
I've got a former Packers.
Oh,
I've got Devontae Adams on here. If you have him, sell him. I am risk averse. We have no idea what team he'll end up on, how long it'll take him to get integrated into the offense, who's throwing him the ball. Is it a 40-year-old, possibly injured Aaron Rodgers behind a terrible Jets O-line? Is it Derek Carr, who's out for at least a week and competing with Chris Olave and Shaheed for targets? I don't know, but he's still an incredibly talented receiver. You don't have to worry about his cap situation in fantasy football. So if you can sell him with the promise that he's going to have great weeks in the future, by all means do. Try to get a more tangible asset, I would say.
What if it's the Chiefs? What if he goes to the Chiefs?
If he goes to the Chiefs and then siphons all the targets from Xavier Worthy, I will lose my mind.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Who else do you have to target?
Yeah, I have 2 running backs here. Yeah, both of them were actually my losing running backs. So again, Breece Hall and Devon Achane. So yeah, again, I would love to see if I can somehow land a Breece Hall type. It seems like if I can target you, if you have him in any of your leagues, and maybe I got something there, But we'll see. And Achane, I'm already an Achane owner in one league, so I kind of don't care to have him in an extra lineup because we just have to wait for Tua to get back. So I'll hedge my bets a little bit. But last but not least, I do have Tyreek Hill here, and I would love to try to capitalize on Tyreek Hill now, just because, again, Miami has the bye week, so that Hill owner is going to be without, a receiver, and there's going to be some room for you to, we're all, at least Mark and I, were thinking Tua's coming back, but that's not a for sure thing too. So that's something that one has to take into account. And if he does, he's still very injury prone to this concussion type of injury. And so it's just that's the kind of stuff that you need to use when you're trying to trade for Tyreek Hill, because yes, he is Tyreek Hill. He is this crazy freak that can kill defenses, but he needs a quarterback to get him the ball.
I think what's tough is trying to strike a deal with a Tyreek Hill owner. Like if you're drafting him, he's your first round pick. You probably drafted him in the top 5, and you might be tired, frustrated with several weeks of just poor fantasy output from him and the whole Miami Dolphins offense. But are you willing to just throw him away or pick up, players of initially lesser value? I think that's what's tough, is there's a little bit of like buyer's remorse for folks who drafted him so high.
Okay, let's go through it. Would you take Terry McLaurin or Tyreek Hill?
McLaurin. But
okay.
I'm also high on Jaden Daniels. So
are you taking Garrett Wilson or Tyreek Hill?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm probably taking Tyreek Hill. Especially, maybe Devontae Adams goes to the Jets. I don't expect him to go to the Dolphins. So that's something factoring in.
Love it. Who's your last trade target?
You brought up 2 running backs. I'll close this out with another running back. Kenneth Walker III. If you can buy him on the low, do so. I know he's struggled with some injuries last year, and then even this year he's missed 2 games already. And last week was underwhelming for him, especially after that 3 touchdown outing 2 weeks ago. But he's still an incredibly talented running back that's going to get 80-90% of touches from the backfield on a good Seahawks offense. And I think there are better days in store for him. So if you are in need of a running back upgrade, maybe you went with like a 0 RB strategy, and you have a receiver or 2 that you can parlay into Kenneth Walker III, I'd do it.
I'll let you be my eyes for Walker. This is just a guy that he doesn't really capture me, right? I love the offense is good though. I will give you that. But I almost don't want Walker if I can't find a way to get Charbonnet also. I need that pairing.
Yeah. Charbonnet had some really good outings as his replacement as well. I think it's one of those philosophies. Do you want the insurance or handcuff to your own running back? If you do, you definitely want to pair both together. If you're like me and you don't care, then you can kind of take a flyer on Walker.
Without a doubt. There's no right answer. It's just a matter of preference.
Yeah.
So, Mark, finish. Let's close this out with some bold predictions.
All right. I don't know how hot these are, but I've got one that I'm high on. I think Anthony Richardson plays this week. That's not the bold take. I
almost
think
fell
he
on my
plays this
chair.
week. I think he plays this week, and I think he has 4 touchdowns total. I'm not gonna say like 2 passing, 2 rushing. He's gonna play this week. He's gonna have 4 touchdowns.
Outrageous prediction, but I love it at the same time.
We'll see.
Yeah, I'll give you one of mine. I think Bijan Robinson explodes this week, and I'm going with 2 receiving touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. So another marker for 3 TD running back.
That's so specific too. Like specifically 2 receiving and 1 rushing.
That's part of the bold prediction.
Listen, if he has 1 receiving and 2 rushing, you got to put this as an incorrect prediction. I'll make sure of it.
Okay, yeah. I know. Yeah.
I've got another Falcons on here as my second and final bold prediction. I think Kyle Pitts is going to have an even better game this week than he did last week. I think he gets at least 70 yards receiving, and I think he gets a touchdown. Yeah.
It's manageable.
Is that bold?
It's your safer bold pick, but yeah, Kyle Pitts is known to disappoint, so
yeah.
So I'll give you that one. My last bold pick, 2 touchdowns and 50 yards from AJ Brown, returning back to the team with the Eagles. So
I can see that.
Yeah,
I could see that.
Yeah. Well, sweet. This wraps up our Week 5 review and our week 6 predictions. So good luck to you, fantasy owners. We'll see you next week.
Sounds good.